Hi everyone, welcome to Manifesting Me. I'm Megan. It's nice to have you here. Today I wanted to talk about what happens when we keep ourselves more or less stuck in our past by the stories that we tell. The stories that we tell ourselves in our mind when we let our minds wander, the stories that we tell other people when they ask what we're all about, where we came from, and just those being gripped by who we were rather than who we are now and who we want to be. Now, mind you, if who you were and your past is just filled with rosy and dandy stories and wonderful experiences, by all means, live there. But if what you're letting your mind go to and what you're kind of staying stuck on in your brain is less than pleasant, then I would say it's a really great exercise to train your brain to stay current, to think about what you do want, not what you don't want. This is nothing new. This is not revolutionary. You're probably like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. So, but how often though do we catch ourselves, or does somebody else catch us if we're lucky? And I'll share a story about that. Reliving the past, a past that we didn't like. And I'll give a perfect example. You meet somebody new in a relationship, whether it's friends, a new friend, whether it's a romantic relationship. What's one of the first things you do? You talk about all your past relationships. And, maybe that's good if you've had wonderful relationships and you're being braggadocious. So like, hey, look at me. But for a lot of us, we talk about our past relationships and they're not pleasant. It's like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what happened to me in the last go around. And we're with this new person. And so what do we expect that the experience is going to be? First of all, we're giving them a story about ourselves, and it's our version of a story. It's one perspective, and we're kind of coloring in the lines for them. So we're not really letting them form their own opinion of us. We're saying, here's what happened to me, and oh my gosh. And, our minds just kind of run with that and create their own story from there. So I had the most brilliant experience, which happened organically. It was not purposeful. We didn't talk about it beforehand, but when I met my now husband, and for anybody who doesn't know, we met online. And the first conversations that we had, we did not talk about past relationships. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't until maybe like 2, 3, 4 years into the relationship that we kind of started to hint at some things that might have happened, either because we were having conversations with other people and the other was within earshot. But as far as the two of us went, we stayed completely present with each other. It was about who we were in that moment together, how it was feeling for us. And it was also not about where we were going to go in the future. It was really always just, hey, this is fun. Let's keep doing it. Cool. And I think both of us had this mindset without even saying anything to each other of, we'll keep doing this until it stops feeling good. Well, I'm thrilled to say 7 years later, it's still feeling good and we are together. And I love telling people the story about how we just didn't bring that old baggage with us. Now, when I met my husband, neither of us had been married before. He had a grown child, and I don't have any children. So it's clear, like anybody who's got children, you got a past, man. You've been in it. So, but he didn't feel the need to discuss that with me, and I didn't feel the need to discuss my relationships with him that I had in the past. And we got to know each other as we were in that moment. And I think that allowed us to grow this beautifully strong relationship on a solid foundation of who we were at that present moment as opposed to the story that we had from the past. So that's one recommendation that I make for anybody who's getting into a new relationship, and that can be with friends too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It can be a business relationship, like any kind of relationship. Just when it's new, keep the conversation and keep the focus of where you are now and let it grow from there. Stop trying to weigh yourself down with stuff that happened in the past. So, and that goes to my next point about where we focus and what we tend to talk about in our own story that we tell of our lives and of ourselves. And I'll use me as an example. I was lucky enough to have my husband point out to me last year that apparently whenever anybody asked me about, my childhood or, anything like, oh, where'd you grow up? I found whatever way I could, in whatever kind of question was asked, to bring up the fact that my parents divorced when I was very young, and I didn't see my dad again after that. Look, I just said it again. So I didn't realize that that was such a track with me that I just kept hitting play on unconsciously. My husband's ears picked up on it, and he stopped me one day, and in a very gentle, wonderful way, which is how he is, he said, "Can I ask you something?" He said, "Why is it whenever you tell somebody about your past that you always talk about your parents' divorce?" And it gave me pause. And then I also felt myself getting defensive. And my first kind of knee-jerk reaction was to say, well, yeah, because my parents' divorce made me stronger. And, I want people to know that I'm strong and blah, 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 blah. And then I just kind of started, vomiting up whatever excuse I could think of, because I was feeling like he had exposed something in me that I wasn't aware of consciously. And as soon as he brought it to the surface, I knew he was right. But there's that part of us that's just like, no, man, I'm going to go to the mat over this. And then I kind of stopped myself. And he really, that one question made me stop and realize, why am I still telling that story? That's not even like the best part of my life. I mean, I had a great childhood. I grew up around the corner from my best friend. I believed in magic. I had a great imagination and used to love playing by myself. And, my gosh, the sky was the limit when I was a kid, and I felt really loved. And, probably like anybody, I went through my teen years, and that was, a little bit awkward, and I felt kind of insecure and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I had a chance in that moment that he gave me of dropping that baggage about what I used to tell myself about who I am, like how I got here. And, it was not a great story. I mean, it was painful. And why am I carrying on to pain? Why am I leading with that? Somebody asked about my childhood, and I'm like, oh, look at this pain. That seems kind of bizarre to me now, but it was a very natural response that I had back then. So I'm so grateful that he did that, because now when people ask me about, where'd you grow up? I grew up in this really great little village and around the corner from my best friend. And I had a mom who was really loving, and I had a dad who, had nicknames for me and was fun and funny. And, I used to like spending time with him, and I felt like his little angel whenever it was just one-on-one time. And that's a new story. And when I tell that story, I mean, it's almost like I can just feel all the cracks in that foundation that I used to think that I had as a kid. All the cracks fill in, and it becomes a solid foundation again. And it's brilliant. So, so I had this discussion on Facebook, and I posed it to the people that I'm connected with there, because my husband yesterday happened to point out to me, he said, oh, have you listened to the latest episode of this podcast that we both happen to like? And I hadn't. And it was kind of, he had like a, uh-oh, kind of message there. So I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to listen to this. And I did. And the podcaster was sharing with his audience that he had dark stuff from his past had reared its ugly head, and he had just kind of surrendered to it, in the sense of, surrendered, said like, I cry uncle, I'm going back to that dark place. And he was in that dark place for a little bit and then got himself out again. And so this was his, recounting of that. And, so when I finished listening to it, I thought, wow, he's certainly somebody who's very bold and transparent and shares openly about who he is. But one thing that I've noticed, and one thing my husband has noticed too in listening to that podcast, is that this particular podcaster talks a lot about his past and where he came from. And he talks about it in terms of the pain, in terms of the darkness. And, that's what he's offering up. And that's okay if that works for him. For me, I stop and I go, wow, I remember if I let myself go to my places in the past that were painful, I can feel that pain all over again. And I'm somebody who, when I feel a feeling, it's very real for me and it hangs around, and that's what I'm manifesting from until I can find a way to replace that feeling with something that feels better. And then I can manifest from a better feeling place. But it's like, this is why I don't watch, movies that are traumatic or have a ton of violence or whatever, because it's like all of that just sticks in me and that becomes my vibration. Like I get this real sad, helpless feeling vibration. I don't ever want to manifest from that space if I can help it. And I know I can help it because we all have control of what we're thinking and what we're saying and, where we let our thoughts wander off to. So, my husband had just made a comment. He said, I guess I'm not surprised to hear this admission from this particular podcaster. And we both, agree, very human, this is the experience we're having and how great that he could share it with people. But certainly, talked about the pain of his past enough that from where I sit anyway, in terms of believing, that we create everything that's happening to us through our thoughts, and where we allow our thoughts to go. I don't want to say this, so but if it was me, I'd be like, well, of course that happened again. It sucks. It absolutely sucks. But it allows for a springboard for better. And that's always the great thing. That's the contrast. That's the, you have to experience bad to know good, dark to know light, fear to know love. So anyway, so that was a discussion that I was having on Facebook, and some great points of view. Of course, there was the, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And I understand that. And I know for some people that's a real visceral, and they have these caution flags constantly of going like, I know how bad it's been for me. I know how bad I've been or bad decisions I've made. So I like to remind myself of that so that I can keep moving in a positive direction and not go back there. I understand. I definitely am sitting on the fence and I'm looking and I can see both sides of it. I can see it from a manifesting point of view where wherever we put our attention is what we grow more of. And I can also see it from you like to have that contrast to know where you've been is not where you want to go again. So it's like you're heading off in a new direction from there. So anyway, big topic. I even said on Facebook, I said, there's just, for all the comments that came in and all the different points of view, I said, there's no way I could get into all the nuances of this particular topic on Facebook and just responding to comments, because it's like my brain just starts to dance this tango where I'm like, I can see this side, I can see that side. But ultimately, for me, what's worked in terms of manifesting my best life ever is to keep myself focused on the good stuff. So if I'm going to be looking behind me, it's going to be telling the story from the good perspective, just cherry picking the good moments, because of course there's always good moments in everything. It's just where our perspective is. So that's it. That's what I have. And I'd love to know, what other people are thinking and feeling and where you've had success manifesting. And if you've had, luck, just kind of keeping your focus in the present as opposed to constantly dipping, back into the past. Let's talk about it. This is a great topic and I'm sure it'll come up again and again and again, because we're all having this great human experience. Listen, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you have a brilliant rest of your day.